Hey, what's up, ReFi Nation? John here from ReFi DAO and my very good friend Simar from Magic Ventures. We are super excited to bring to you a conversation with Luuk and Pat from Kolektivo. These guys are true pioneers of the regenerative finance movement. They've just released their Bluepaper, an updated website, and are hosting an upcoming festival in the island state of Curaçao in October. What is Kolektivo? Luuk, I'll kick this off with you.
Kolektivo is a toolkit to create local regenerative economies. It's been a real journey to go from me first touching crypto in 2016 and not really understanding what it was, to the first wave of DAO innovations where I met Pat in 2018, 17, to iterating on the systemic challenges that the world is facing, matching it with innovations that we're seeing both in and outside of Web3, and then now finally tying that together into this vision of Kolektivo.
What origin story in the experiences that you had affected the way that you have built Kolektivo to serve the needs of the local community in Curaçao?
The lack of functional institutions, both governmental and financial, were the barrier for these opportunities creations for the locals, and the reason why so many people never return to the island after graduating or ever moving abroad, because the foundation, the kind of social fabric on the island is just limited. A lot of small countries like Curaçao have semi-dysfunctional currencies on their island. Curaçao is one of, I believe, 18 or 23 countries that has a dollar-backed currency, which means that every local, all the local money is printed with some backing in the US dollar, which traditionally was a blessing because it allowed for liquidity with the global market. But especially in the past decade and especially the past 2 years, is becoming more and more of a curse and a limiting factor. The unemployment rate went from 19 to 50. We had over 50% of the population depending on food aid. And this was for me the trigger that made me go all into Kolektivo and go from an experiment and a want to this needs to happen, because every day that we wait, people and nature are suffering. Because if you as a community don't have the resources to feed your own children, heck will you care about nature?
So much of global liquidity is based off of access to the primary liquidity providers, to the central banks. It is about large financial institutions having privileged access. It is about their networks having privileged access. It is about celebrities. It is about politicians having privileged access, and using that to pay for lifestyles and for acquisition of property that could be more equitably distributed. So this nepotism is a global phenomena. It is not only happening in Curaçao, and part of the reason we're making Kolektivo is we want to create primary access to liquidity. We want people, and if we do this, if people have this primary access, if they're the ones determining how this liquidity is distributed and using the most sophisticated Web3 primitives to do so, these social choice mechanisms that we've been working on for so long, we see a much more efficient system emerging from this organization.
So I understand that you have Kolektivo Network, which is this kind of global network and set of tools that are trying to support local regenerative economies. And there's a strong demarcation between the global distributed network and this local network that has a sense of place and a sense of autonomy and sovereignty. There's people on the ground with smartphones interacting with a local currency that is used to buy normal goods and services, but that local currency is basically backed by the health of the living systems, whether that's marine life or whether that's a food forest. And the health of these living systems isn't just an abstract thing, it's a productive thing. Fruit and veg and exchanges are taking place, and there's an entire economy of production that's happening on the ground. And kind of in between this local, health of the living environment economy and this global distributed economy are a set of rules and, kind of measures that ensure that this system is sustainable and that it works in effect, and that it's not just going to crash and burn like a lot of the Web3 experiments that we've seen. Do you have any stories in particular, Luuk, that are coming to mind of businesses that have been created, lives that have been changed, or just a general kind of sense of regeneration actually happening on the ground?
The biggest one is creating jobs for people that would otherwise not have the opportunity to do a fulfilling job. here you can do something that allows you to be a creator. You can plant something, 3 months later, you can harvest it, or 2 months, and later you can even cook it and eat it with your family. So there's one specific individual called Clarvin. He created this thing called Kanuku Kitchen. He has his own food forest. He harvests the fruits and vegetables, and every week he goes to the city center and he makes the most kick-ass food ever and then sells it locally for a good price. And he's able to live from this. Now his neighbors also see, hey, he's able to make a living from this other lifestyle that's not extractive, that's not, I'm able to potentially do the same or do something similar in that same direction. And the amount of positivity that is spread by him having such a fulfilling life spreads on to dozens of other people that would potentially not have been doing those positive things otherwise. So it's this positive iteration from the process of regeneration that really excites me.
Can you guys help us unpack this concept of a natural capital asset, who's providing demand for it, and where you think this will go and how it will support the growth of these local Kolektivo instances?
Our hypothesis over time is that demand is going to not only increase from the legacy sectors, if you will, but it's going to become more and more endogenous to the Web3 space. And governance is ultimately what determines the quality of a natural capital asset, how this asset is produced and what it signifies. And what it signifies is just the underlying material reality of what's actually occurring. And if you have that data, once again, if you know that this is what's happening, then you have no recourse. And I think demand is just going to increase over time. I'm very, very bullish on this side of the sector, if you will.
More and more projects, and I think this is just a start, are recognizing natural assets as a valuable and critical asset and are gravitating towards this becoming part of their socioeconomic fabric and saying, this is what we want. We don't want oil or gold backing our country or our digital nation. We want it to be backed by real world development, by positive change.
Regeneration is complexity, and complexity means you have a greater number of connections with everything around you. That's just how complexity works. So when you build connections between people, they don't want to cheat each other. They want to work together to achieve something greater than the sum of themselves. I think ReFi should aspire to this third way. ReFi should say, listen, there's a lot of great technologies that have been produced. We can do interesting things with Web3. We can do interesting things with DAOs, with NFTs, with DeFi. We can make Web3 greener. We can make it better. We can refashion our institutions by leveraging these technologies. But we also need your technologists. We need your guys who like hanging out in dark rooms, hacking Wintermute for $160 million. We want them on our side, don't we? So this is something ReFi can do. ReFi can build that narrative, it can build that umbrella, and it can move forward with that umbrella, and it has to, because I don't see any other feasible way.
Well said. I love it, and I feel like you guys are a great duo to make this happen. For people listening who resonate with this call to action, to use the tools of technology we have to really value nature and people as they should be valued and as we need them to be valued to survive, how can people get involved in what you're doing?
The number one way, if you're listening to this and you're convinced that this is what you want to be involved in, for sure, we're organizing a big festival on the island of Curaçao on the week of the 22nd of October. Building up to the festival, we're going to have almost like a ReFi retreat. We'll have about 50 to 100 people that we can facilitate with a journey that starts on the Tuesday with a group dive and group snorkel. We'll be working on methodologies for coral reef natural asset. The next day on the Wednesday, we'll be doing a tour through multiple food forests, and we'll talk with the people that have been doing it. We'll look at the methodologies. We'll look at the fruits and vegetables that have been harvested, and we'll end with a nice dinner near the beach where you can enjoy and kind of tie it all together. The next day, we'll have an open room for workshops and facilitation where we can all share our stories and learn together. Friday, the day before the festival, we're going to open or do a soft opening of our co-creation space in Curaçao in the city center, and a nice Caribbean happy hour with live music and nice drinks. And then on the Saturday, the main day, we'll have this festival, which will have two stages. One stage will be completely covered by ReFi conversations. But we'll also have piloting of the Kolektivo wallet. You'll be able to buy fruits and food and drinks with the wallet. You'll be able to have conversations with that kind of 50 to 100 ReFi experts and a couple hundred locals. So there's a lot happening. If you feel that you want to taste all of it, come to the island. It's a wonderful paradise, amazing beaches. If for any reason you can't make it, digital is the way to reach us. We just went live with our Bluepaper on kolektivo.network. You can also find it on kolektivo.co. Here you'll find all the information of our latest blogs. You'll find the Bluepaper. You'll also be able to find more information about our upcoming seed round, as we are now working to bootstrap this network even more and working to scale this up to a dozen full communities next year, to then hopefully be able to tie all those learnings together in the coming 2 years to be able to create a generalized framework for regenerative economies. Because that's ultimately what we're working towards. Kolektivo in Curaçao is just the first pilot. Next year, we'll learn even more. We'll learn how these modules work together, but also how they can behave standalone. What does just a community currency mean for a community? What does just natural assets mean for a community? And even more important, what does the full spectrum of the Kolektivo network mean to communities? So if you're interested in supporting that, or if you're already running a local community currency or a local regeneration group, do reach out to us, because we are picking up pace. We've been prepping for this moment for the past 3 years. So now really is the right moment to get involved.
Thank you, guys. This is so exciting. I feel like this is the moment I've been waiting for in ReFi, to really see the power of these Web3 coordination tools, empowering local communities on the ground to do the most important work of our time.
Thank you both, seriously, for all the work that you've done here. It's like beautiful to see how it's all coming together.
Thank you, guys.
Right back at you too. Your work is incredible. Thanks so much.